Okay, cricket is where we begin on the SportsMax zone. West Indies started their World Cup qualifying campaign with a 39-run victory over the United States in Harare on Sunday. The Windies posting 297 before limiting the Americans to 258 for 7 to complete an expected victory. What might not have been expected, however, were the comments of assistant coach Carl Hooper in a pre-match press conference. This is what he said. No disrespect to the other teams, but we're playing against the likes of the USA, Nepal and Scotland. Even Afghanistan is ahead of us and Bangladesh has gone ahead of us. So this is distressing. And can we go lower? Yes, we can go lower. This game continues to remind you that until you start doing the right things, you can go lower. As I said before, I never thought I would live to see this day, but here I am in Zimbabwe. Jason Holder, former captain of the team, who was the player of the match on Sunday, responded to Hooper's comments saying this.
Man, people will have their opinions, man. I think they're entitled to their opinions, and, we've just got a job to do. I don't think we need to make it any harder for ourselves by taking on any outside pressure from...
He's the assistant coach.
Oh, fair enough. I mean, at the end of the day, the thing is for us just to stay focused on what we need to do. We've come here to qualify, and that's all we need to do.
Yeah. Let's get international commentator and SportsMax analyst Fazir Mohammed on this discussion. Faz, Jason Holder not taking kindly to the comments there by Carl Hooper, describing it as outside pressure, but it is inside because he's the assistant coach. He's in their dressing room.
Precisely. So clearly somebody needs to tell Carl Hooper that he needs to get on the cheerleader bandwagon, because that's essentially what it's all about. When you're coach, when you're assistant coach, and it can be disrupted in a team environment because players don't take kindly. Most of them aren't mature enough. And you wouldn't expect that from 20-year-olds, even in the early 20s, to be mature enough to accept criticism. But Carl Hooper didn't say anything that was wrong. It's just that you don't expect your assistant coach to be so open about it. But he more or less indicated that when he had first spoken to the media a few days earlier, because for someone like Carl Hooper, who was part of that great dominating era of West Indies cricket, to be in Zimbabwe in a qualifying stage for a World Cup is a very, very bitter pill to swallow, and he just couldn't hide it. So this is the reaction.
Yeah, and to be fair to Carl Hooper, Faz, the narrative was triggered by a question that was put to him in the pre-match press conference, where the reporter quoted a comment that he had made last year when the team failed to get into the main draw of the T20 World Cup, and Hooper pretty much said that, and the reporter asked him, well, you said this last year, do you still feel that way? So I think he pretty much was caught in a situation where he knew he had said that many months ago. So in all honesty, he just pretty much repeated what he had said then. It wasn't like he just came out and blurted that out for everyone to see in June, just ahead of the World Cup qualifiers.
Which is precisely why the PR people at Cricket West Indies need to have a word with Carl to let him know that now he is officially a cheerleader. He is the batting coach, but he's also a cheerleader. And this is where the problem arises, that you're not allowed anymore to basically say it as it is. And even if, yes, it would have come across very harsh and you wouldn't expect your batting coach to say it, sometimes you need a wake-up call. And this is it. Okay, and maybe it's been sort of brushed aside and Jason Holder is just trying to make light of it and saying people will say whatever they say and that sort of thing. The fact is that it is something that maybe our players need to properly appreciate. Excuse me for stumbling. But the West Indies, for many cricket nations of the world, if not all, remain the defining standard. First two World Cup triumphs, beaten in the final, shock loss to India, beaten in Test match series for 15 years, some of the greatest names in the game, even before that era of the 1980s. So again, I think what Carl Hooper is reflecting is a difficulty in appreciating where West Indies are and how it appears that so many people at the administrative level and at the playing level of West Indies cricket appear to be quite comfortable with this situation.
Yeah, important point you make there, Faz, but isn't it true that especially when you're in particular positions of power and leadership, that how you say something can be as important as what you say? And maybe, just maybe, in this instance, in the same way that Jason Holder was able to say, listen, at this stage we're focused on qualifying for the World Cup, that maybe it should have been a similar route that Carl Hooper took in responding to the question.
I agree with you 100% that it's often how you say it rather than just what you say, because sometimes you're crucified in the manner in which you've said something that is perfectly correct. But Ricardo, let's look across almost 30 years of struggling West Indies cricket, and all of the nice phrases and all of the nice things have been said. It's all part of the process. We're learning as we go along.
But the difference is, Faz, that Carl Hooper is now in a position to help make a difference. It's okay that he said it some months ago or said something similar some months ago, but he's now in a position to help make that better. How should the individuals who you are helping feel when you say something like that in the media, that yes, we can go lower, as opposed to we're not thinking about that. We're thinking about improving. We're thinking about qualifying for this World Cup. We're thinking about getting to India and doing better than we did last time, doing better than we've done in recent years. Even if Fazir Mohammed and Ricardo Chambers have heard it 100 times and end up criticizing Carl Hooper, at least he creates, I think, some type of a bond with the players he's trying to help, instead of quite possibly creating a separation between himself, the new assistant coach, and the players in the setup.
Because, Ricardo, maybe Carl Hooper has had that shallow, empty rhetoric up to here. and as we said, what he would have said in Australia when the West Indies were well beaten in a couple of test matches when he had no portfolio, he would look an absolute fool if he were to come now and not recognize that reality as well. And yes, players will be upset and so on, but okay, let's take that point. How many coaches and assistant coaches have towed the party line, have sung from the hymn book, have sung all of the lovely rhetoric and all of the beautiful rhetoric, only to fail abysmally? So what difference, if what you're saying is true, if it is now that Carl Hooper is now public enemy number one in the West Indies team's dressing room, so what? What difference is it going to make?
Well, let me ask you this, Faz. What do you suspect he said to Rovman Powell after the way he got out against the USA?
I suspect he didn't say anything. Because, you know, the thing is, Ricardo, you can only say the same things enough times to get that message across. And sometimes, when someone has done something, as in the case of the Rovman Powell, first ball, big hit, out. Nicholas Pooran, going well, big hit, out. Shea Hope, going at less than a run a ball in the middle order for one international against a non-entity like the USA, big hit, out. What more can you say to players who have this wealth of experience? Shouldn't you be able to expect of them an appreciation of the circumstance? That West Indies are not supposed to defeat USA. They are supposed to dominate and annihilate USA as a way of getting themselves ready to steamroll the opposition. Again, to answer your specific question, I suppose he didn't say anything to him.
Faz, I have a question for you, because in theory, I'm going to put something to you here which you can dissect on your own, because Gajanan Singh made 100 against the West Indies team on the weekend. He is a former West Indies under-19 player and played in the World Cup in 2006 when Leon Johnson was captain, Kyron Powell, Andre Fletcher, Pollard, Narain were on that team. Is it reasonable to suggest that having left the West Indies system and being in the USA now, where the developmental infrastructure of cricket is supposed to be far inferior to the West Indies, that maybe Singh has lost nothing by not being in the West Indies and still has some ability and isn't any worse off for leaving the West Indies?
Well, I look at it differently. It tells me that the system in the USA is so poor that someone like a Gajanan Singh at the age of 35 can be a key man.
Yes.
And it tells me that, and again, we have to remember that the USA was suspended by the ICC for a few years, a couple of years ago, because of the state of their game, that it's wrapped up in all sorts of politics. There tends to be a lot of pulling and tugging between the Indian subcontinental interests. We're talking India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, which is a huge diaspora, and then you've got the Caribbean diaspora as well. There continues to be that pulling and tugging. And then you have players who would have been so-so in the Caribbean, getting opportunities. We remember Anderson Cummins getting opportunities for Canada. We remember Nicholas de Groot of Guyana getting opportunities in the United States. And indeed now...
Xavier Marshall.
Sorry, Xavier Marshall, correct. Xavier Marshall is another name. If you can't make it in the Caribbean, there's always the USA. Because
I hear you, Faz, but I'm still suggesting that you say the USA is so poor that someone like Singh can get in, but he has made 100 against the West Indies bowling attack.
Again, it asks the question, is that to the credit of Gajanath Singh? Yes, because he scored 100, his first one-day international 100. But again, shouldn't we be expecting better from a West Indies team? Azari Joseph, who had a fantastic 2022 and early 2023, going at almost 8 runs per over, coming on as the 4th change bowler. Shouldn't we be thinking of the West Indies after the early breakthroughs, steamrolling the USA for 120? So yes, I understand your point. There's a lot of potential in USA cricket, don't get me wrong. And again, Ali Khan didn't play for the USA because he's serving the first match of a 2-match suspension. And we all know him from the CPL and how good he is as an opening bowler. So, again, it's a bit of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, to answer your question, Lance. But from a West Indies viewership and performance in the future point of view, I would think that Gajanath Singh wouldn't be allowed to get past 50 against the West Indies if the West Indies were really keyed up, fired up and focused on their job.
Yeah, well, it's their opening game. We'll see what happens with this West Indies team as they continue their unbeaten run, because to be fair, they are on an unbeaten run in recent weeks under Darren Sammy's coaching. So a lot more to come for the West Indies here to show themselves and whatever improvement they can display. But Faz, we have a lot more to talk to you about, because the Ashes is on a knife's edge at the moment, and there are some issues with the Ashes that we'll discuss after the break. Back in a moment.